important to know your terms when looking at genetics, because when you are looking at the questions are going to use those terms in particular. For example, the term dominant, recessive, let's say gene, allele, all of these terms are important. So just a little refresher before we go into a question. I actually had a question on the screen while you were waiting. That's basically the wording of the question that I want you to be familiar with. All right, because from the question, you have to extract, understand the terms, and work out the inheritance of a particular gene. So first, let's start off with some, go back through the terms once more. I also have another handout. I will share. I'm going to share with you concise terms, concise definitions of the terms that you already, well, you already have it on the slides, but just if you need it, you need to hear it being described another way. I will also send this to you so you can take it down. Right now, these are very important terms. Some of them are interlinked. For example, the first three. So we have chromosome, we have allele, and we have gene. Who can tell me which of the three is the smallest component, the tiniest unit? Which one is the smallest out of these three?
Chromosomes.
Okay, did you all? I'm hearing chromosome, I'm hearing allele, right? Who said, okay, if you agree with chromosome, let's see, raise your hand.
Allele, miss.
All right, more people saying allele. Very good. And that's the answer. Allele is the tiniest one here because really and truly, the chromosome structure is what houses these two. The gene is found on the chromosome. And what forms a gene? Two alleles form one gene. Now, chromosomes is basically, you have 46 chromosome structure in all of your body cells, except which one?
Gametes.
Except the gametes, and the gametes are your sex cells. So what is chromosome made up of? It's made up of DNA. DNA is the molecule that builds the structure, and it contains genes. Allele, basically you could say it's an alternative form of a gene. So it's one, is like part of a gene, and they are in pairs. So pairs of alleles occupy the same relative position on chromosome pair. So when you look at the chromosome structure, which you have a diagram on this slide, but this is another one here, you're going to notice bands, like little highlighted regions. So on both sides of the chromosome, both bands of the chromosome, you're going to have your two alleles. And the two alleles form a gene. So this segment, if I'm looking at this purple top region here, that will basically be a gene that codes a particular characteristic about you. It can be anything to do with your physical appearance. It could also be or it can code internal aspects of your body as well. For instance, it can code your metabolism. It can code if you have a particular hormone in the body and so on. All right, so don't just think narrow-minded that it's only physical attributes that these genes code, but it's everything about you. So that is why you learned human cells contain 46 chromosomes, and the sex cells in particular only contain 23, which is half the number of chromosomes. All right. You also looked at, well, a gene. A gene is a section of DNA which codes for the formation of a protein. So whichever gene that you may inherit, you inherit an allele from your mother and you inherit an allele from your father. So both, when it comes together, you have a unique gene. It may be the same or it may be different. So that is how everyone has, specific characteristics that are unique about them. Right? You learned genotype. Genotype is basically the genetic makeup of an organism. And what we use letters. So you're going to notice that there's letters to illustrate an allele or illustrate a gene. And that is what we are going to use letters and symbols to work out the inheritance of a particular gene. Phenotype is basically the visible or physical characteristic that is expressed. Homozygous, as you remember, it means two identical alleles. So in symbol form, you could have two capital T, that's homozygous. What is another way to represent homozygous?
Use two common letters.
Two common letters. So if we can have two common T's, which will also illustrate the homozygous condition. However, we have a heterozygous condition where we have a pair of dissimilar alleles. So that means two different alleles. So in symbol form, we illustrate a capital and a common letter for heterozygous. Now the capital means it's dominant. Dominant means something is standout, something is purebred, something that a particular trait that is more common in a population. So here we are saying dominant is a gene, example capital T, that always show in the phenotype of an organism whether the organism is in heterozygous or homozygous. So it means that if you have two different alleles, capital and common, the capital will overpower the common. So the person will express this particular allele. And if you are in a homozygous form, if you have two capital T, well, both are dominant. All right. Now, recessive is the one that is not common. However, it can be expressed only if it's in the homozygous condition. So if you have two recessive alleles, then it will take effect in the person's body. All right, and that's the terms that you need to know in order to work out the questions. So I have a video about the Human Genome Project, just so you could get a little familiar with all of these terms and where it is found. Now that's important as well. You learned in cells, we look at the nucleus. And then when we did mitosis and meiosis, we looked at how the nucleus made copies of cells and so on. So what we have to know is all of these things, chromosome, allele, gene, these are things that are found in your nucleus of your cells. All right, so let's get a clearer idea. All right, let me show you this. And if you cannot hear before the video finish, please tell me. All right, just unmute yourself and say not hearing.
An organism's genome is the entire genetic material of that organism, so the complete set of DNA. It provides all of the information required by the organism to function. DNA is a long chemical that contains bases represented by the letters A, T, G, and C. A gene is a section of DNA that codes for a particular protein. To learn more about DNA, watch this video. The human genome is 3 billion bases long, but only consists of about 20 to 25,000 genes. As an average sized gene is only about 3,000 bases long. This means that large parts of our DNA doesn't code for genes. The genome of every person on Earth is 99.9% the same. It's that tiny 0.1% that makes up genes that give us our unique differences. In fact, our genes are 98% similar to a chimpanzee's and 75% the same as a mouse. The Human Genome Project was an enormous project that saw scientists around the world collaborate to work out the sequences of bases in the human genome. The project started in 1990 and was completed by 2003, 2 years ahead of schedule. And here is the order of the bases: A, T, G, C, T. Only joking. If I was to read out the bases, one at a time, for 24 hours straight, it would take a whole century, and I certainly don't have time for that. So, now we have the information, how is it being used? Well, since the structure of DNA was determined in 1953, we have known that the order of the bases is very important, and that a change or mutation in this order can result in diseases. By sequencing the whole genome, scientists can use this information to work out the genetic causes of diseases, such as cancer, as well as developing treatments. The forms of genes, or alleles, associated with different inherited disorders have been mapped, which means that genetic tests can be carried out on people to see if they are sufferers or carriers of an inherited disorder. For example, a genetic test can tell if someone is a carrier of cystic fibrosis. By comparing the DNA of people living in different parts of the world, scientists have been able to trace human migrations. The Out of Africa theory, that the first humans left Africa within the last 100,000 years, has been supported by comparing the DNA of people living in different areas of the globe. The evidence shows which people are more closely related to others. Because of all the data generated by the Human Genome Project is available to anyone to view free of charge online, means that scientists around the world can use the information in their research. This helps to increase the number of uses for it. There have been major advancements in DNA sequencing since the Human Genome Project ended. It took 13 years and billions of dollars to sequence a whole genome during the project, but now scientists can do it in a matter of hours, and you can even get yourself sequenced for a small fee. These advancements will help develop new strategies for the prevention and treatment of disease. So, in this video, you've learnt what a human genome is, what the Human Genome Project was, and how the information from it
If you
is
liked the
being
video,
used.
give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe. Comment below if you have any questions. Why not check out our FuseSchool app as well?
All right, so that's a little information about the Human Genome Project. You all could feel free to search it in your free time. But what we need to know is basically, we don't need to know the codes. We don't need to know all of these bases. What we have to know is we are using symbols to illustrate our genes. Well, basically, we are using the symbols to illustrate the alleles. And we are going to determine what can a parent transfer, or the combination of alleles that can be inherited in the offspring of an individual. So I want to show you a question. You could read it. And from the question, we are going to pull apart the main parts. All right. And we're going to use symbols, and we are going to use the first method, which we learned, which is the Punnett square. That's like the little box that you saw last week. And we are going to work out this question. Now, these questions carry sometimes 5 marks, sometimes 8 marks. And there are particular steps that you need to have in this question. So I advise you to take down the question in your book so that you can write down the working. I'll show you, this is an example, I'll show you on screen how we are going to work it out, but I want you to have it step by step in your book. All right, so go ahead and read it, take it down in the interim, and then we'll start underlining and looking at the actual clues in this question. Right, so 2 gray mice, when mated, produce a total of 8 white, 9 black, and 17 gray offspring. Student A suggested that gray coat color was dominant in the mice Student B strongly disagreed. Which student is right? Explain your answer using appropriate symbols. Now, this question, it carries 8 marks. All right, and there are particular steps that you need to have in order to work it out. Always start off with the parents. So they are telling you, now sometimes it could be, animals, sometimes it could be plants, sometimes it could be a particular characteristic from a human that they may bring. And this one is basically the characteristic here is the coat color. So let's first understand what is the characteristic that we are looking at. It's coat color, all right? And the different coat color that you saw in the question, we have black, we have white, and we have gray. Now this is 3 different colors. So usually we start off by we're using symbols to illustrate what those are. We are using symbols to illustrate the colors here. All right, so first choose a symbol. Make sure you can write the I'm not sure why this, yes. Make sure the symbol, the letter that you choose is something that you could tell the capital and common and so on. So I'll just use capital B for black. Now I want you all to notice something. This question has 3 different colors. Anytime you are seeing a question, especially when it comes to fur color, it could be like a petal, a flower petal, the color of the flower. When you see 3 different colors, this is what you call incomplete dominance. And this is when you have a blend of 2 alleles that is going to form a 3rd allele. So what colors will make gray will be if black and white was to mix, is going to form this 3rd color here, right? The gray. So I'm going to use a 2nd letter to illustrate white. So this will be white. Right? And if we're illustrating gray, it will be capital B, capital W, because that will mean when both of them mix, it forms gray. All right, now that's the first step. You could just come up with your symbols, you write it here. Now you're going to write your parents. So you normally have the term parental phenotype. Now remember, the word phenotype means the visible or the physical characteristic. This question, if you read it again, they are telling you 2 gray mice mated. So they're already telling you the color of the parent, right? When the gray mice mated, what the offspring is going to inherit. So some of the mice will be white, some will be black, some will be gray. Now the question is stating student A suggested that gray coat color was dominant in the mice. Student B disagreed. Now think about it. When you look at mice, what is the more dominant coat color that you notice? Between gray and between black, between those 2, which one is more prominent?
Gray, miss.
You say gray? You see more gray mice as opposed to black?
Oh, any offsprings, miss?
No, forget the offspring. I'm asking you a general question. Between gray and white, black, which one is more prominent?
The black, miss.
You tend to see black. black is our dominant color. And what this question is asking is, if student A is right, now student A said that gray is dominant. But you know black in your head, you already know black is more a dominant color than gray, right? Same thing with rabbits. Gray, when you see gray rabbits, is very rare. Brown rabbits is rare. You tend to see more black, you tend to see more white. Same thing with the mouse, you tend to see more black mouse than gray. So student B strongly disagreed. So, automatically you're leaning towards student B, but you have to prove who's right. So you have to use symbols to illustrate which one is correct. So you start off by saying parental phenotype. Now they're saying two gray mice mated. So I'm going to put gray by gray. Normally, when we use the word mated, it means they reproduce. So we use a symbol like multiply, they mate. So gray mate with gray. Right? That is the phenotype of the parent. That's what the question said. Then we are now coming up with the genotype for them. So the second line should read, of course, you make sure and write it properly. I'm trying to write as neatly as possible here. So you're going to write parental genotype. That's your second line. So based on the phenotype, you are just going to put appropriate symbols to match the genotype. So what symbol are we going to use to illustrate gray? What are we going to put here? And remember, two alleles form the gene. So what are the two alleles are you going to use to illustrate gray? Okay, you all unsure? Now remember, B is
Capital
black.
B, capital W.
Yes. So Jaden said it. If capital B is black, capital W is white. In order to get gray, these two will mix. And that is when you're going to form a third allele. So therefore, this will be B, W, mating with B, W. All right. Now we're going to use the Punnett square. By now, if you looked at the video over, you would have practiced some questions in school. You should be able to work out your Punnett square on your own, but I'll still show you. You're putting your parents on the top and at the side. So you're going to put B, W, B, W. And what you're doing, you're multiplying top by side, top by side. So I want you to try, you do it on your own, and then I'll fill it out and let's see if you got it correct. So go ahead and fill in this Punnett square on your own. If you're finished, call out what you got, call out the symbol, the letters. Anyone got the letters? Anyone got the offspring? All right, so by now you should know top multiply by side. So in this first square, you're going to get B, two big B's, right? What are we getting in the bottom square here?
BW.
Right? And over here.
BW.
Right, and the last one?
WW.
Right. Everyone saw that?
Yes, miss.
Now we have to understand what these symbols are representing. So your last, let me scroll down. You should have okay, I ran out of space, so I'll put it in the corner here. So so far, you should have your alleles, your symbols. You should have your parental phenotype line, parental genotype. Then you have your Punnett square, and then below, right? I'm just going to write it in the corner here. You should have something like F1, which stands for first generation. So I'll put it, let me see if I can write it in instead. Yes. So you should have F1 generation. Genotype. Right? This is if the first generation, if these parents mate, the first generation, what the combination of alleles that they can inherit. So they can have two big B, they can have, now that happened once, and then they can have BW, that happened twice, and then they can have WW. All right. Hope you all good so far. Then we have to list the phenotypes. We put first generation phenotype. I would like someone to tell me the colors and let it match up with these symbols. So what is BB? What color will that express?
Black.
Blackness.
Black. BW.
Gray.
Right. And then WW will be white. Right. So
Goodness,
everyone.
next question. NPW has a chance to produce black or white.
Yeah, that's what we are getting right now. So from this cross, from this meeting, this diagram here, we are seeing that even though if the parents are gray, there's a slim possibility. Now I use the word slim because this is 1, 2, 3, 4 chances. Remember, I show you in the Punnett square, it's 4 chances. This does not mean 1 mice, 2, this is a mice here, this is a mice here. That the Punnett square is not telling you the amount of mice. All right, the Punnett square is telling you the chances of the alleles that can be inherited from the parents. So what you should have like a follow-up where you have a ratio. So in this, we are going to have because it's 1 black chance, you put 1, 2. It's 2 gray chances, it's 2. And then it's 1 chance it being white. All right. So here we can see, even though the parent is, the mice is gray, the parents are gray, you have a 25% chance or a quarter chance the mice or the offspring can inherit black coat color, or 25% chance that they can inherit white coat color, or it can also mean that they can inherit, you have 50% chance that they can inherit the same gray coat color. All right, so in this explanation, when you're putting all these lines, you must have a sentence. Which student is right? Explain your answer using appropriate symbols. So student A suggested that gray coat color was dominant in the mice. Student B strongly disagreed. Which student is right? So the answer would be basically the student B is right. Student B is right. And that is because gray is not a dominant coat color. Gray was a mesh, or it was a combination of the black and the white that produced that particular color. And this is what you call incomplete dominance. This is a very unique question. You know, it's a very special case. So you should have a follow-up sentence just explaining that. So I'll write it here for you. So student B is correct because in mice, gray coat color is obtained, I would say is formed from the blending of the black and white allele. This is called incomplete dominance, which means that neither alleles are dominant. Now, because we are only using capital letters in this particular question, it means that none of the alleles were dominant. All right. That is a special case where you call it an incomplete dominance. None are dominant. So, and you know, I know you tend to see more black mice. However, gray, black, and white. Gray was formed from black and white. However, none of them are considered a dominant form. All right. So in this question, if you are ever faced with a question with like coat color, sometimes they bring cows. Like sometimes they have that roan cow color. The mesh between, I think it's brown and I want to say black. I will go back to that question, but if you are ever in a situation where you have a question that has 3 different colors, that particular question would be a incomplete dominance type of question. All right, and these tend to be trickier. They don't give you hard colors. They will give you like black and white with gray. In flowers, I have seen they give you red flower, they give you white to form pink. So I'll actually bring that question up just to see if you can do it on your own, and then we'll move on to another type of question. All right, if you are finished, anyone still taking down the answer here?
Me, miss, give me like 5 seconds.
Okay. Alyssa, make sure and take down the working.
All right, miss, I'll get it on.
Okay, so I want to show you another question which involve same thing, same color, but in flowers, all right? So just hang on 1 second and we get that question.
Miss, are you still searching for the question?
Yeah. Yes. I have to go far back for this question, but hold on. Give me a few minutes. This is a very old question. Okay, found it. Right, so this question, let me share my screen. You are going to find it in the large past paper book, right? Where you're going to see 2005 to 2016. This is taken from let's get the year. Oh, January 2009. Question 3, right? That's it here. Are you all seeing the question?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
Okay,
Yes,
so
miss.
let's work this out first. Well, I'll read it. We'll go through it, but I want you all to use the same steps from the previous one and work it out. Now here we are seeing a chart, right? Ignore this chart. I'll explain the gametes in a second. Now you're using letters and words as appropriate to show the inheritance of flower color when two pure breeding varieties of impatiens are crossed. This is basically a type of flower you tend to see a lot of varieties, a lot of different colors. So here we have a red and we have white. Now they give you the symbols to use. Okay, sometimes they give you the symbols. So what they are saying is the heterozygous phenotype is pink. Okay, now pink, in order to get that pink color, the red and the white have to blend, right? So here we have capital R for red, capital W for white. What symbols would you use for pink?
R and W.
R and W. Now use the same term. So you're going to put parental phenotype, parental genotype, list it out. Gametes is simply, no, okay. So gametes, when you write the actual symbol, you circle it. So for instance, back to the, that's also another line that you could incorporate. That's basically to show the alleles that can be transferred from either the male or the female. So under parental genotype, you could have the term gametes. And it's just a symbol. To illustrate it, you're going to put the, now in this question, it was BW. All right, so I'll put gametes. And then to illustrate gametes, you put back the symbol BW for the parents, but you circle the allele. So you circle B and you circle W. And you do it for both of them. So you put B and W again in this case and circle. Right, this is to illustrate the gametes. So work out this question using the same lines, right? Well, they have it as a chart. You ignore the chart for this chart. You put it down like how we did it. Put your Punnett square, put your F1 genotype. Well, you could put F1 generation genotype or F1 phenotype. And let's see what you got. Oh, and also include ratio. At the end, I want to hear what ratio you come up with between these two parents. Right, so work on it. If any questions, let me know. Right, if you're finished, feel free to share your ratio. You can write it in the group chat. Just tell us what ratio you got. Or you can say it in class, unmute yourself and tell me. Anyone finish?
Yes, miss.
Okay, let's see what ratio you got.
Ratio of things to all US, miss. I
Say that
got a 2
again.
to 4 ratio. I got a 2 to 4 ratio.
2 to 4. You know, 2 to 4 could also be 1 to 2, eh?
I
A
got
little maths.
a 1
Uh-huh.
to 2 to 1.
1 to 2 to 1. Uh-huh. Anyone else? Okay, I'm gonna work this one out. I'm not sure where the others reach.
Miss, I want to see you do it because I'm not sure if my answer is correct.
All right, no problem. Right, so let's extract this information. So they have red and white that is crossing here. So your first line, right, and it's repetitive. So you'll be writing it over and over, but that's the only way it will stick. So let's put phenotype first. Parental phenotype, it's red meeting with white. Then we have parental genotype. So it's RR crossing with WW. Then we have gametes. I'll have to, okay, I'll put gametes here. Again, it's just a symbol. You put in, oh, I didn't like how this went as one line, but just ignore this. Gametes will be R, let's circle it, multiply by W. And then you have your Punnett square diagram. So you have R, you put the parent on the top, doesn't matter which one, you'll have the same outcome. And then you have the parent at the side. Right, so now you're cross. R and W will make RW. Then top and side again, you have RW again. Then we have RW. Now don't try to mix it up. Sometimes when you are going through the symbols, you might put W in front of the R, but let it be consistent. So you put R, W, and then R and W form RW. So all of them is RW. So in this case, for this ratio, it will just be, so let's put the other line. So you have F1 generation genotype. And you just list it out. So it's, all of them is RW. So I'll just put RW, 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 RW. Then we have F1 generation phenotype. So you have, in this case, I'll put all. What is the color here?
Pink, miss.
Pink, all pink, right? Our red and white makes pink. The ratio in this case will be 1 because there's only one combination of alleles that are being crossed. So if a red plant cross with a white plant, 100% chance that the offspring will have pink flowers. All right. How many people got this correct? Which part you went wrong? Tell me which line or which part in the question you went wrong. Is it the square? The Punnett square?
So same thing is
The Punnett square?
Miss, I use the other method.
red and white on top. One red and one white.
You got one
And
red,
on the
one
sides,
white?
Almost like on the top, it's basically one R and one W, and on the bottom, on the sides, it's basically one W.
Oh, yes. I'm now looking at what I did. Hold on, let me go back to the question. But didn't they say red and white? Yeah, they said, oh, Jaden, the parent here, they gave you red mating with white. So you have to use what they gave, right? What they said is using letters and words show the inheritance of flower color when two pure breeding varieties of impartians are crossed. And they actually went on and said that the heterozygous is the pink. So they already had an idea what would have been the offspring. All of them would have been pink. Okay. So that is why we illustrate the parents as red mating with white. Tristan, you were saying something.
No, miss, I just raised my hand to say that I got it right.
All right, but you used what method?
The Punnett square method, miss.
Punnett square. Very good. Okay. All right, so this is another example where we have an incomplete dominant case, where we have the mixing or the blending of two alleles to form a third allele. In this case, the third allele would have been the pink color, and we represent it using RW. All right. There's never a question where you have to use 3 different letters. So you will never have a question where you have, let's say, R, W, and S. That you'll never have a question like that. Anytime you have like 3 colors, you notice the question have to do with some kind of full color, petal color. That's the only scenarios I've seen it. You use your 2 letters, and to get the third allele, you use the 2 different letters together. All right, so let's take a break and then we'll come back and do more calculations. We call this genetic calculations. All right, so you can see the different ways in which these questions come. The more that you practice, the more that you'll get used to the symbols and the terms and all of these things. All right, so let's pause. We'll return at 2:15 p.m. Let's look at this question on screen. Ryan, can you read question 1?
A cross between a pure breeding tall pea plant and a pure breeding dwarf pea plant.
Okay. So here we are seeing tall, the characteristic is basically what they are looking at is the height of the plant. So as for tall, they are using the capital T for tall, and for dwarf, meaning short, you're using common T. So as tall is dominant to dwarf, and both plants are pure breeding, their genotypes must be capital T, capital T. So anytime you see the word pure breeding, it means homozygous. So it can mean homozygous dominant, where you have both of them in the capital form, which will illustrate the tall plant, or it could be two common T, in this case, to represent the dwarf plant. Now, this have nothing to do with incomplete dominance. It's a different kind of question here. So if you were to have a Punnett square showing a cross between these two, this is what you'll have. So if you have tall mating with a dwarf plant, genotype, you put capital T, mating with common T. Gametes, you circle the alleles, separate them and circle it. And then we have the Punnett square. Now, sometimes in the Punnett square, you don't have to circle the letters. You can do it. You can just put it on, list it on top and the side. Right now, it's the same concept. You multiply top by side. So here we are seeing all of the outcome here is capital T, common T. Who can tell me what is the phenotype? What is capital T, common T going to express? Anyone? Is it tall? Is it dwarf? What is it here?
Would it be like in between tall and shortness?
No, in this case, because you have a capital letter in front, it will be expressed over the recessive form. So because common T is recessive, dominant allele, which is capital T, will only be expressed. So therefore, all will be tall in this case. All right, I want you all to try out a question. So here we are seeing, let me just zoom in so you want to see the work again. A cross between two heterozygous tall T plant. The genotype for both plants must be capital T, common T. So I want you all to cross capital T, common T. Use the Punnett square, show all your working, and I would like to hear what will be the outcome at the end. What is the ratio, or what is the phenotype at the end with the offspring? All right, so go ahead and work on this. Anyone lost? Anyone that doesn't know what to cross?
No, miss, I understand.
All right then. I'll give you 2 more minutes. So when you see 224, we'll correct it. Okay, what ratio did you all get? Still working? And everyone got very quiet. All right, so we can't spend all time on this question. So let's go through the working. So if you have capital T, common T, both of, now this part here is wrong. When they say dwarf, this one's supposed to be tall, crossing with tall, right? Because if it's a dominant, if you have a capital letter and it's dominant, it's going to be expressed over the recessive form. So ignore this dwarf here, it's supposed to be tall. So if you have capital T, common T, multiply by capital T, common T, you're going to get a 1:2:1 ratio. So let's verify this. So big T by big T, you get, right? Big T, big T. Big T by small t, you see it happening twice. This is correct. And then the last one, you have small t by small t, 2 small t's. So your first generation should read it's 1 tall, or now in this case, I'll show you something. Because we have 2 forms in the heterozygous dominant case, so we have a capital letter and a common, it will still be regarded as a tall plant because we have the dominant form of the allele. All right, so in this case, we are going to say it's a 3:1 ratio because we are going to count 1, 2, 3 as tall. And then we have 1 out of 4 chances the plant could be a dwarf. So this is a 3:1 ratio. How many people got 3? Let me see. How many people got 3:1?
I did miss.
All
Two
right, very
capital
good.
T, common T and 2 capital T's, and then one with 2 common T's.
Very good. All right, so I want you all to try out. Now that we understand, hold on, wrong screen. Right, I want you all to try out a past paper with that same concept. Right, same thing with height, not height. This one is the trait will be the size of the leaf. So you have two plants. You have basically, you have large leaves, and then you have one that has large leaves and flowers. Both of the parent varieties, 1 and 2, were true breeding homozygous for flower size. So here we're seeing large flowers, small leaves, and here we are seeing small flowers, large leaves. So when they both cross, you had large flower, large leaves. That was the outcome. So now you have to basically match using symbols for large flowers. And you know what? This one will be too complicated for you because you now start off. All right, let me get an easier question. This one will be a little trickier. Okay, this one is very doable. This has to do with eye color. All right, so Shivan, can you read part 1 for us? Shivan, are you hearing me? You all hearing him? I'm not hearing anything.
Miss, I'm not hearing them.
Okay, Keenan, can you read part C, part 1?
Yes, miss. With the aid of a diagram, determine the inheritance of a eye color for a homozygous male with brown eyes mating with a homozygous female with blue eyes. Brown eye color is dominant over blue eye color.
Okay. Now in this one, they are telling you homozygous male with brown eyes, mate with homozygous female with blue eyes. First, I want you to come up with some letters for brown and for blue. Well, what they are saying is brown eye is dominant over blue eye color. So whichever letter you choose, tell me which one is, okay, so for example, if they're saying brown eye color is dominant, which one is going to be capital? Will it be brown eye or will it be blue eye? Which one is going to be in the capital letter?
Brown eye.
Brown eye, right? So whichever you choose, whichever letter you are going to choose, make sure that brown eye is the capital form of the allele. So go ahead and work it out. I want you all to take a picture of this one and send it to me. So I trust that you are doing your end of the work. I'm not sure if you're doing it because I'm noticing a lot of people quiet. Right, so do it step by step and send it to me, please, on WhatsApp. Thank you. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay, so far I received one working from someone and they got it correct. So I'm waiting for the others to send me, please, and then I'll move on. And it's okay if you're not sure about something, you could ask, right? You might not get it at the first try, but it takes a lot of practice in this particular section of your syllabus. Right, just checking up. I'm giving you all about, let me see, now it's 2:28. So far, I didn't receive anything from Keenan, Shivan, Alyssa, Jaden, Ryan. Only Tristan sent. So I'm giving you till 2:40 to send me the picture. All right? So we can move on. All right, so I'm waiting on Shivan. Shivan, can you send a picture? And Jaden, I didn't get from, and Ryan, 3 of you. Okay. So let's go through it. I saw that some of you sent it and you all were correct. Just a little thing with your steps in terms of how you represent your steps, okay? Now this one is 3 marks, and again, start off with your parent. Your first thing, start off with your key, which is what letters you're using to represent the alleles. So let's work it out and see. All right, so basically, what you have to have is the key phrase. So brown eye color is dominant over blue. I notice everyone put B. That's okay. I'll use the same letter that you use. So capital B stands for brown because this is the dominant eye color, right? Common B stands for blue. Right? I think someone just sent. They're working to me. All right, so let's work it out now. So so after you have your key, you then come with your parents. Parental phenotype. So it's going to read brown mating with blue. Make sure and put your multiply sign means mating in this case. All right, and then you have parental genotype. I have to write shorthand now because of time. So now we're putting 2 capital B because the question said homozygous, which means same alleles. So let's go back to that question just to make sure. So they said the homozygous male with brown eyes mating with homozygous female with blue eyes. So we are correct by using the capital, both of them in capital and both of them in common. So the next step is your Punnett square. So you put B, and then you put your common B. All right, so big B by small b. Then we have big B by small b again. And then again here, by now you should know to cross it. And then we have it. Big B, small b. So in this outcome, we are seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 chances of the offspring inheriting the heterozygous dominant form. So what would be the eye color of the offspring in this case? Anyone? Oh, if you are putting gametes, make sure and circle the individual allele. So you're circling each allele. Right, so you put a circle around the B, then the next one, and then here. Right, that's what you're doing. Right, so the next line, you have to put your F1 genotype and you list it out. All of them was capital common B. Right, so capital B, common B. And the F1 phenotype, all of them, what color eyes? I'm not hearing anyone. Ryan, what is the color?
Brown, miss.
All will have brown eyes. Very good. I didn't get your work in, huh?
I'll send a number.
I got everyone, but I didn't get you. And well, Shiva, I didn't get your work in either. So I'm not sure if you did it. You need to take a picture and send it to me, please. All right, so all of them they will have brown eyes. Right, so I want to just go back to our slides just to recap on what we covered today. We covered two kinds of questions. We call this one, anytime you're using capital and common letters, that is what you call complete dominance. These are complete dominance, where you have an allele that can be completely dominant over the other, which is the capital form. Then you have the other question that we did, the first one, which is incomplete dominant, where there's no dominant allele. There's actually a blend between two alleles to form a third one. That is what we saw in the mouse, and that is what we saw in the flower, the Impatiens flower. All right, so those are two kinds of genetic questions that can come. I'm going to send you a worksheet. But before I send the worksheet, I just want to show you what we covered in the slides. So when you're going through the notes, look at the working, all right? So, and it's the same file that I posted last week, continuity and variation. So I'll tell you which slide we reach. Right, we went through all the terms. We went through, well, we looked at the first example, which was albinism. We have not done codominance just yet. Next week, we'll look at codominance, and we'll look at the sickle cell anemia, this genetic disease. We looked at sex inheritance. That one is easy. And the sex-linked disease. Oh, okay, so this slide doesn't have the two types of question we did was complete dominance, as I mentioned, and incomplete dominance. Next week, I want to look at codominance, sex-linked disease, sex inheritance. So 3 different types of questions. But before we can move on to these kinds of questions, you need to master the ones that we did today. So I'm going to send you a worksheet. All right, I'll send you this one. And let me call out the ones that you are doing for homework. You could even start after class. You could start okay, so you're doing question 8. Look at the handout, question 8. All right. All of these are past papers, huh? Now you're doing question 8, part A. Take it down, part B. And that's it. Don't do the rest, because that will be the other kinds of questions. Then you are doing question 7 here. right? All of this is being recorded, so you can always check back. You're doing question 7, part A and B. You are doing part C as well. Right, in this handout, that is all you are doing in this handout. And then followed with, I'll send a next handout. Hold on, before. Right, I'll send a PDF file with genetics worksheet. You're doing question 1 to 10. This is multiple choice. 1 to 10. And you are doing question 4, part A and part B. That's all. Right, 4A, 4B. Anyone needs me to repeat, or you can look at your recording, it's up to you. Everyone got that?
Yes, miss.
Right, so I'm gonna post the worksheet right now. You can go ahead and start, all right? Because it's a lot of questions. I want you all to be ahead of it because it's important. When you do it before class, we can go through it together. If you don't do it, I'm going to just put you to sit down and do the questions so we can work it out because it doesn't make sense if you don't do it ahead of class. It's going to just waste a lot of time. Right, so I'm going to post it right now on Google Classroom so you can get a head start. All right, and that's it. Have a wonderful Easter. Hope all is well and take care until next week, Saturday. Please God.
Bye, miss.
Bye.
Bye, miss.
Bye, miss.